Welcome everyone that's joined online. Um, as many people know, we've been looking at a book by a meditation teacher in the South Bay named Charlotte Catherine, and the book is Beyond Distraction, and it's very much drawing from a sutta in the middle length discourses, the removal of distracting thoughts, and the Buddha outlines 5 strategies. And tonight we're looking at strategy number 4. So the first strategy, just for review and also context, the first strategy is, these are sequential. The Buddha is really suggesting we start, with that. The first one, which is, we have a meditation object, be it the breath or metta or body scans, and we notice that the mind is not with the meditation object. So we just, replace this distracting thought often, very often, back to the meditation object. Another part of this strategy number 1, which is basically replacing unwholesome off-track thoughts with wholesome thoughts. Sometimes just returning to the meditation object, the mind goes off again. So you can enhance that strategy by, whatever it is that's distracting your thoughts, you can start to pay attention to a different aspect of that. Replace the sign. Like, so if the distracting thought is a lot of craving for, connection with somebody or food, or, just chilling out and reading that murder mystery that you're almost through, then you work with paying attention to a different part of that. Or you can pay attention to a different part of your meditation object to gain interest. So replacing unwholesome thoughts with wholesome thoughts. And for each of these strategies, the Buddha is giving a simile. He often does this. It's a very powerful teaching technique. So the simile for this strategy is that you've got a coarse peg, and it's coarse and it's unwholesome, and you're banging that coarse peg out with a more beautiful peg, with a more fine peg, a more subtle peg. And just a bit of information, these middle length discourses, they've come down to us in Theravada Buddhism, and they're in the Pali language, which is related to Sanskrit. And there are parallel collections of many of the Buddha's discourses, which is very encouraging. It's very validating. So there's a whole nother canon that basically dates back from the same time as the Pali canon in the Chinese, and it's preserved in Chinese, not in Pali. And so this sutta is also in the middle length discourses in the Chinese. They're not called Nikayas, they're called agamas. So, and the sutta is almost verbatim, which is sort of very encouraging. But the one difference in the sutta, in the agama, is this particular simile. That it's still a carpenter, it's still this idea of working with wood, it's still this idea of taking something and making it less coarse. But the simile is actually, you take that thread that's got ink on it and bang it and get a straight line on a piece of wood, and then make a cut. That's the simile in the agamas. And the second strategy is seeing the danger. Like, so if this first strategy, we're still having the mind go off the meditation object, go off, then you can switch to strategy 2, which is to really be contemplating the danger of this train of thought. This is, or it can be very simple while you're meditating, like, wait, I'm meditating. This is my time to be with my meditation object. And if you can think of it as a relationship, like if it's your time with your child, you don't want to be texting, and that's kind of what we sometimes do in our meditation. So you just can remind yourself of the danger of, like, this isn't even what I want to be doing. This isn't forward leading. And then if it's something that's pretty unhealthy that you're playing around with in your mind, you're worried about finances, or you're ruminating over a difficult conversation, then just think about, well, the danger of staying on that course of thought. It's not going in the direction that you're wanting to be going. And the simile here is very powerful, very, very powerful. And it really draws on this beautiful theme in the suttas of the beautiful mind. The Buddha is telling us, meditation is training the mind, and the mind becomes more and more beautiful, more and more flexible. And so the simile for this second strategy is, it's lovely because the Buddha talks about it's a young woman or a young man, that is bathed and put on all clean clothes, and that's the beautiful mind, and that's us in our meditation with our meditation object. And then this finely dressed, perfumed, beautiful being then hangs a dead carcass around their neck. Really, really powerful imagery. That this is what we're doing when this is, you can just conjure up that simile for just bringing the mind back. And then strategy 3, I'm beginning to think that these are pairs. Like there's 1 and 2, and I speak with meditators, and a lot of meditators actually just use 1 and 2, and it works quite well for them. I think strategy 3 and 4 are like, I think strategy 3 is related to strategy 1, and strategy 4 is related to strategy 2. So I think that you have this pair, and I think lots of times that's enough for people. And then if it's not, if it's a really sticky mental habit, a sticky emotion, a sticky memory, strategy 3 and strategy 4. And strategy 3 is what Sanghamitta talked about last week. And again, it's related to strategy 1. Strategy 1 is this idea of replacing the unwholesome with the wholesome. And then if that hasn't worked, and really kind of splashing your face with cold water of like the danger, like, no, this isn't how I want to be. This isn't what I want to be doing. That's not working. Strategy 3 is just this idea of, again, I think it's focused on the sign, and it's focused on the object, but the emphasis here isn't what you're turning the mind to, it's what you're pulling your attention away from. That then you realize, oh, the mind's gone off here, and bringing the mind to the meditation object hasn't been successful. So I need to take more energy pulling my attention away from this fantasy, this wish list, this planning, whatever it is. So you put a lot of concerted effort into taking your attention away from that. And strategy 4, and the simile for that is, it's like somebody is, pulling their attention away from something because it's distracting and it's not good for them. So the simile the Buddha gives is, it's like a person's looking at something and they realize, I don't want to be looking at that. So they close their eyes, and they don't look anymore. They turn away. And we've all done that actually. So strategy 4, I think, is really related to strategy 2, and we will spend two evenings discussing strategy 4, because I think there's a lot to unpack with it. And the strategy is, one thing I remember, the strategy is to sort of unravel the causes. So the instruction the Buddha gives is that if replacing unwholesome thoughts with wholesome thoughts has not been successful, and if contemplating the dangers has still not been successful, and if withdrawing the fuel and taking the attention away from what's pulling the mind isn't been successful, then this is the 4th strategy, and it's that you start to investigate what are the causes and conditions that are underpinning this planning, this worry, this fear, this anger, whatever it is. So the instructions from the Buddha are actually that you're going to still the thought formations. He actually uses the Pali word sankhara, which is a tough word to translate, but it really means fabrications or constructions. So it's really understanding what I think many of us deeply trust and have experienced, that our thoughts are not objective reality. There are thoughts. And this particular strategy number 4, is where you realize, okay, I've tried all these things. This distracting thought is loud and it's right in my face, and I need to now, I've tried to look away, that's not working. I need to look right at it and look into it deeply and try and understand what about my history, what about my story, why do I keep getting caught? Why is this happening? So that's what we'll talk about tonight. And the simile the Buddha gives is this idea of stilling these thought formations, looking into the causes. It's like someone's agitated. This is the simile. Someone's walking really quickly, and then they start realizing this is a lot of effort, and I'm getting tired, and no need. Why don't I stand? And they're standing for a while, and it's like, still, I can make it more easy, more simple, and they sit down. And, well, gosh, I'm almost there. They lie down, and hopefully the mind does that. It's busy and it's agitated, and then hopefully as we unpack what's happening, the mind gets the distracting thoughts get slower and simpler and fewer and more spaced out, and then the mind, we're hoping that we can have the mind just lie down and rest. So this is strategy 4. And again, I think it's related to strategy 2. So strategy 2 is examining the danger. It's kind of looking at, where's this thought going? And strategy 4 is, where's this coming from? We're going to dig down into what's feeding it. And no matter what, I hope that you've all really seen this while you've meditated. Like, no matter what, our thoughts are distorted. They just are. They're biased. They're filtered. Even the sensory data that we're working with is already distorted. We know this. I mean, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. like so much. It's not this completely straightforward, objective reality out there, and we're all looking at it. It's not the way it is. I'm sure you know this very famous Harvard study, and then the clip gets put into the movie What the Bleep. You know this study where people were asked, for sure, I promise you this is true. People were asked to watch this little clip of this basketball game, and they were told, pay attention to how many passes happen with the basketball. No joke. So in the clip, so there's these two basketball teams, and they're playing and they're passing the ball. And during this, it's a very short clip, like 5 minutes or 3 minutes. A woman dressed up like a gorilla in a full gorilla suit walks into the court, right into the middle of the game, waves at the camera, and then walks off. And half of the people don't, this has been replicated, half the people don't see the gorilla. And I didn't. I was watching the movie and What the Bleep and didn't see the gorilla. And then you're like, no way. There's no way someone in a gorilla suit walks into the camp and waves to the camera and walks off. There's just no way. And then they replay the clip. And there's this woman, she walks in a gorilla suit. It's so intense. You probably could, now that you know, it won't work for you. I shouldn't have spoiled it. But it's great for Buddhists to watch. You could Google it, I'm sure. Gorilla walking through the basketball game. And then what you could do is show it to some other people, and about 50% of them won't see the gorilla. So anyway, try your guys. Yeah, because it's a beautiful thing to realize. Like, oh, everything that comes in is filtered through my preconceived ideas, my hopes, my wishes, my expectations, my energy level, my mood, how hungry I am. Like it's amazing. It's all changing, and it's all subjective. So strategy 4, examining the causes and conditions underpinning the misperceptions and the distracting thoughts or beliefs. It's not for every little thought at all. The little thoughts, hopefully we don't do anything. They just, and then this is for the big juicy stuff. And there's really just a couple areas. So the things that we probably are going to be wanting or needing to do, strategy 4, the 2 patterns that are worthy of this like intentional meditative investigation are, number 1, toxic distractions. And I think of them as things that were, I don't think any of us want to think of ourselves as having addictions, but we probably all do. They're in that camp, the things that we're making New Year's resolutions. I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to do X every day. It's sort of those things, these toxic distractions. Like when you're meditating, a lot of planning or bad habits, like bad habits in our lives, like overspending or overeating or over interneting or over social mediaing or anything that's, got some kind of a grip on us. These are the things I think we want to start to unpack and investigate. What's fueling this? What's keeping it going? Where is it coming from? Why am I feeling the need to do this? And then I think the other pattern is like just these deep delusions, these personal stories we have about ourselves, for different people, it's different things, like an overconfidence or an underconfidence or a feeling of victim or a pattern of martyring, and doing stuff for other people and and not taking care of your own home and your own stuff. Uh, these need to be understood so that we can dismantle them. Yeah. So, Shaila Catherine in the book outlines two different approaches. I'm going to talk about one of them tonight, and it's this acronym that I've heard before. It's the acronym RAIN, RAIN, and it's a wonderful thing to do in meditation for something that's sort of recurring. It's a bit obsessive. It's sticky, and you've tried other stuff, and it's just still there, loud and in your face, or in your body, in your heart, in your throat, in your stomach. So, RAIN. But actually, before I get there, I just want to say with strategy 4, it's not like fueling more thinking. That's not what it is. And it's not rehashing old pains and traumas. It's not ruminating and regurgitating. It's and I'll explain. Actually, Shaila Catherine to me has a really good exercise that I'll read at the end, and hopefully we can all do it at some point this week and talk about it next week. But this is strategy 4, this trying to unpack the causes and the conditions, the context of these persistent distractive thoughts. It's an investigation into the ways that we perceive and conceive. And the perceiving is what I was talking about with the basketball game. That is already distorted and filtered and affected by all of our history. And then that feeds our worldview, how we conceive of things, our worldview, our view of ourselves. And these circle around one another, perceiving and conceiving, and they're all distorted. I have a really good example of this. I had a few years ago in my life, I had a very difficult relationship, probably the most difficult relationship I've ever had. It's complicated and confusing. And I can remember this one time, I was already a practitioner by now. I was coming into a room, and I had this bag, and this person I was having so much difficulty with runs over and grabs the bag from me. And I was just like, and my self-talk was like, so I did, what? You don't think I can carry a bag? And I just picked it up, like, and I stopped. I mean, I didn't say any of this out loud. This all, how these things happen. They go so fast. And I was saying, this is nuts. Like, someone else did that, I'd be like, thanks, it was helpful. I just realized this relationship is so fraught that this person was doomed. Whatever they did, if they said something really encouraging, it'd be like, what? You think I'm depressed? You think I need encouragement? You don't think I could? Whatever they did was like, had landed negatively for me because it was just so gnarly. And I think this is an example of this, and so those are the kinds of things when you really difficult relationships and these stories that keep running. These are the things we want to use strategy for. So it really involves, asking ourselves, like, how did my story, belief, or habit come to be? Like, where's this coming from? And looking at the conditions that trigger our unhealthy habits and feed our negative thoughts and impressions and perpetuate our deluded stories. So this useful acronym of RAIN. And R, and this is what you would do in meditation, and you could do it also if you're just quietly sitting. Maybe you're not trying to be with your meditation object. Maybe you're just, you know, putting yourself to bed or whatever. This is also something you can do with things that are quite negative and quite heavy, and causing you, you know, worry, anxiety. uh, this approach, recognize, you know, this is what's happening. And then A, for accepting it, allowing it. That's such a big one for many of us. And then the I is really the strategy for it's investigating, or having some interest, like, bless my heart. Why, you know, why? And then N is just not taking it personally, not identifying with it. And this is the beautiful piece that the Buddha is giving to us. It's giving us the whole thing, but this is a very, very important part, to not taking it personally. And actually, Sangamita and I have been talking that after we're finished this book, we're going to do a deep dive into a book by Ajahn Tiradamo called Working with the Five Hindrances. And that's really, we're also talking about it. We're just not calling them the five hindrances, we're calling them distracting thoughts. And just to know that these distracting thoughts are not you, right? This is just, it's just a mental fabric, it's just a mental activity. Yeah, so not taking it personally. So R for recognizing is, you know, just you're in meditation and you've tried strategy 1, 2, and 3. This thing is sticky and it's agitating. And so then you just admit, you know, whatever it is, this old story, it's here. Here it is. And it's quite loud today, you know, and then you can go to your body, recognize what's in your body. My head feels light, my throat feels tight, whatever it is, my shoulders are really tense. Recognize what's here. And then number 2, accept it. And for me, honestly, this is the most difficult part, because I have quite a bit of aversion and pretty uptight and insecure, you know, and these all make me want to, like, not really just be, hey, this is what's happening. You know, I got a lot of dancing around. Very important. The meditation teacher we're fired up about, Beth Upton, she actually defines metta as acceptance. That this is metta. This is love. Like, this is unconditioned, you know, concern, that we just accept. This is the way it is. And this is what's happening. And there's a lot of our suffering would be reduced if we could get better and better at practicing this, and cut ourselves some slack. I mean, pretty much every one of us, most of us, I think, are white, you know, and I do think it's part of white conditioning that there's quite a bit of, there can be quite a bit of superficiality. There can be quite a bit of emphasis on, depending on what our heritage is and our roots are, a lot of emphasis on hard work and productivity and not being weak and pulling our weight. You know, we come from a totally individualistic culture, very, very deep conditioning for us to not accept all of ourselves and accept all of reality. And if you're having trouble accepting a part of yourself, you could just pop it into reality category, you know, like, what? This part of reality I'm not willing to be with, because it is what's there. It's what's happening. my daughter took a course in university on actually construction of the self. Pretty amazing university course, but there was a lot of reading about collectivist cultures versus individualistic cultures, and there was this wonderful example, and this I want us to really take this in, because this is our deep conditioning, and we live in this, and we're molded by it, and it's got a lot of downsides. They used as an example two gold medalists, and one was Asian. I think they were both divers, and the other was American. And all they did in this research, in this article, was quote the interviews after the winning of the gold medal. And the American was, and this would be the Canadian too, the white Canadian from the same European. The Americans like, oh yeah, just it all came together, and I was really able to focus, and I practiced a lot, and blah 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 blah, all about themselves and how they did it. And the Asian, the entire interview was all about, yeah, my coach, my family, and and I'm not saying that this person was falsely humble. This is their framework. They're not this single solitary thing. They're one in a cog, in a group, in a context, in a community, in a culture. And so when they succeed, but it's also when they fail, right? So for us, when we fail, so there's more riding on success and failure, because it all depends on us. And this is very, very intense conditioning. So, and we have this incredible opportunity as we're meditating to come to a place where we're just more familiar, we're more comfortable with vulnerability, with unknown, with weakness, perceived weakness. This is just these are all constructs, but territory that we typically don't. How are you? I'm fine. Good, great. Have a great day. We live in this. I really get to see this principle of accepting when I'm with my daughter and her children. You're going to get sick of me talking about my daughter and her children, because they're 6 and just about to be 4. And she's really committed to attachment parenting and done lots of reading, reads lots of the research. And attachment parenting, the focus is on the attachment, a secure attachment relationship with the primary caregiver. And there's lots of facets to that. And a huge part of it is this acceptance piece. And it's like when I'm there and I'm watching her parent, it's like watching meditation. It's like watching mindfulness. She's doing it like externally. It's so inspiring. And if I could just do some of that, attachment meditating, that sounds terrible, but like really, there's a lot of attunement. There's a lot of mirroring that goes on. So, if the children are upset, Allison, she's just so patient and kind, and like, oh yeah, I get it. I can hear. Yeah, you're really disappointed. She tells him, I get it. You're disappointed. You thought it was going to go blah, 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 Yeah, I get that. And then she'll do, that's it. I get that. And then it's just quiet. And then the child's nervous system just has space. It has safety, and it regulates itself. I've watched it. It's just, it's like magic. And I think it's mindfulness and meditation, like this attunement with our own mind, with our own experience, and this accepting, like, yeah, oh, yeah, you are disappointed. Yeah, I mean, Ivan, her son who's 6, when he was 3, she was playing with this other little boy. The other little boy was really being moody and kind of grumpy, and goes off in a huff and sits down on this step. And Ivan, he's 3 years old. He goes off. He goes over to him. Chase, you frustrated? Frustrated, Chase? He's trying. Yeah. Yeah, they just have a lot of emotional skill and range, just because they're accepted, and when they're off, it's accepted too. And then there's space and time to just come back. The acceptance, huge piece for each one of us, and then the investigation. I'm just going to give us this brief meditative inquiry, and hopefully we will all have a chance to practice this week. And then I'd love to start next week just talking a little bit about it, and then we'll go on next week to non-identifying. So next week we'll talk more about investigating, and then non-identifying, not taking it personally. But this is the exercise that Charlotte Catherine gives, this description. And for anyone that does have the book, it's on page 129. So this is strategy number 4, how we can try and start to practice it. So this brief meditative inquiry. During your sitting meditation, the inquiry into the causes and conditions that affect thoughts must be brief. Ask a skillful question and pause briefly to sense your response. Then return to mindfulness of sitting and breathing, or to your primary meditation practice. So, meditative investigation is powerful, but it should not devolve into extended self-analysis or personal explanations. It's enough to, number 1, pose a pointed question. Take a moment for number 2, curious observation. And number 3, nurture the desire to expose the underlying patterns that sustain the habit. Then, without becoming seduced into scrutinizing your personal history, fixating on a personality type, or assuming that the past experiences will repeat, return your attention to present moment mindfulness, and keep the inquiry brief so it does not lead to further distractions. So the thing is to just pose a simple question, like, why am I upset? What's the hook here? Why am I caught? And you can come up with your own question that's appropriate for what it is that you're finding is pulling you away. So I'm going to end there and have time for questions or responses or comments, and just open it up. Speak. I'm really glad that you read that example from the book, because you start off by saying you do an inquiry but you don't think. So it's like, how do those two fit together? Yeah, so it was good to hear what she meant. Yeah, so I think it's just posing a question, and then just being quiet and just have some careful observation. Oh, here. Thanks, John.
I don't know if it's about the book, but it's more about the example of your daughter with a child. And as I was listening to it, I think ultimately, and I don't know if this is true or not, but it is my belief that each person wants to be seen and heard. And so her children are being seen and heard, which ultimately, if we take that step further, we want to see and hear ourselves.
Exactly.
And so they will have a greater capacity to do that as they grow. Very cool.
But I think that's exactly right. And hopefully, we're doing that. We are in meditation. We're learning to see and hear this mind body, and the more that becomes very like real and available, then we invariably will be seen and heard more, because there'll be more congruence and there'll be more authenticity. There'll be much less shame, and maybe even less unacknowledged, unexamined needs that then can play out. I mean, we all have needs, but the more that we can acknowledge them and we know what they are, and we can be forthright about them, the cleaner and smoother.
I've got a question about the first method. So going back to the first method, and last week, I thought I had taken from it that you change the actual meditation object. That was the strategy. But this is like just a slight, and I can see how replacing unwholesome with wholesome, for example, you're creating something, you do death meditation, or aversion, you do a meta. Is it like you're switching your meditation object, or are you just thinking of kind of the antidote for that hindrance?
Are you talking about strategy one? Yeah, I think very, very, very often, Ryan, for strategy one, you're just going to be returning to your meditation object. That this distracting thought, I guess we can have them to the left too. This distracting thought, be it like, okay, say I'm meditating and my meditation object is the breath. And I'm with the breath and with the breath and with the breath. And then I realize, oh, I've stood up and I've gotten my, coat on and I'm going out to go skating. And then, so that's a distracting thought. So I think that the very first thing to try is to, come back to your primary meditation object. And now if that's not working, then you can play around in strategy 3. It's all getting a little bit, I mean, I don't know.
Can I add
Yeah,
something
please.
here? So for myself, when my mind wanders, at first I'm just going to bring it back to the breath. But then if that's not working, before going actually to strategy 2, then I'm going to replace with an antidote. So if it's anger, then do metta. If it's
Not necessarily a meta meditation, but a thought of.
well, it might switch to metta meditation for a while to get the aversion or anger, whatever, settled down.
And I find actually lots of times that's quite a big jump. They go from, I've got anger and now I've got so much love. I think you can start to have some metta, honestly, sounds a bit weird, but I don't want to say metta for your own anger, but like some deep acceptance, which I think has the flavor of metta, for the pain and the agitation and the angst and the anger. And so it's the same, but for me, it's broken down into 2 parts. I need to attend to here before I can start blissfully radiating metta.
Yeah, I don't think meta means that has to be going to another,
Yeah.
because it can be for yourself. So
Yeah.
you're just saying it's for yourself.
Yeah.
This is really interesting because while we were talking, I was looking at the parallel of my life. And because I had this sense of never being heard or being me, I mean, I was us all the time, when I left home and went to school, I had this need for someone to see me and recognize me. So, I mean, I was reckless. I mean, I drank and partied and did drugs, and it was all to attract some attention and not realizing that wasn't right. So when I started meditating in my later 20s, I could not handle what was coming up in my meditation. So I just ignored it and jumped right into the PD and stayed there because of like being stoned, and you didn't have to deal with anything out there. And so then when you come to your practice, my practice now, and how it is not ignoring, and it's discovering yourself and bringing that peacefulness or contentment, so then you can be outward with it. It's quite a long road to get there for me, but just when you were talking, I thought, oh wow, I think I use that deep acceptance, like not just of anger, with many different challenging things. And for me, what it does is, I do think it's that element of meta, because it, in that deep acceptance, what felt so huge and so big and insurmountable, it dissipates, and it's like, okay, and I was like, oh, okay, and then there's this, you can move through.
Yeah, acceptance is really, really important for us. Anyone? Oh, great. Thanks. Amberly, please. Oh, and then Kusala as well, right? Kusala?
Yeah, she was
Okay,
first.
great.
I'll let Kusala go first.
Oh, great. Thanks, Amberly. Kusala and then Amberly.
Okay, it's just on a bit of a lighter note.
Great. That sounds
okay.
great.
Yeah. Many years ago, John Kabat-Zinn came to Calgary, and yes, and so we were in the audience, and they were passing the basketball, and the gorilla, I did not see it. Like, this is true, and because I pride myself on being super observant and looking for the details and everything, right? And they're doing the basketball thing. And then I didn't even notice it. And, this was a room full of meditators, and most of us didn't. So when you spoke of that, it just took me back to that. And it was just, it was, wow.
I know, Kusala, I could not believe that I didn't see that gorilla. I thought they had two films, But thanks so much for saying that you didn't see it either.
No. And so it goes back to that little saying, don't believe your thoughts, right? Like, just
Totally.
don't believe. Yeah. And even seeing is not believing.
Yeah, you can't even believe your eyes. Yeah. It's so good for us. I really, it won't happen for you because you know what for the gorilla. But show someone else.
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you for the reminder.
Excellent. Wow. Amberly.
This might be a rudimentary question. I think that's the right word. But how are you supposed to give a brief inquiry into whatever is bubbling up, but also learn about yourself and not really go down a rabbit hole of thinking and analyzing?
I think
it's so, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, first of all, let's all try it. So I think it's this idea of posing the question and then going back into silence, and then having careful observation. So then just, I think it involves a little bit of a paradigm shift. We have been, we here in Canada, many of us high school grads, maybe university grads, just got a lot of training in critical thinking. And this is, you pose the question and then you're just trusting the nervous system. And so that you just trust and that, you know, then you're going to observe. Did something unwind a little bit? Whatever. I'm not going to say. You watch. You know, why is this bothering me so much? What's underneath my anger?
Right.
You know, and then it might be that you'll realize, oh, the feeling, it's actually I'm disappointed, you know, and then well, I'm disappointed. And I'm not saying this is it. This is going to be in your, yeah.
So do the exercise and see what comes up.
Yeah, see what happens. Yeah, just a really simple question. Like you would ask your friend and then you just wait.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
I just want to go back because I don't feel I answered completely what Ryan was asking about replacing. So for replacing, what you're replacing is the thought. You know, you're thinking that so you're with your meditation object and then you get pulled away into some kind of thinking. And we're defining that as the unwholesome state. And so we're replacing the unwholesome state. We're not replacing our meditation object. We're replacing this thought that has pulled away. And so the easiest thing is just to replace it with our meditation object. But if we still keep wandering around, then you may want to do something more specific. Yeah. Is that clarifying, you know? Right.
And we're past time, sorry.
Are we on week 4?
I think so, because we did Mudita last week.
Okay. So Pekka. Great. Okay, so we'll do our closing now. And we're closing with the Brahma Vihara of equanimity. In Pali, it's Upeka. So if you can bring to mind somebody that you have a neutral relationship with, somebody you don't have strong feelings of aversion or attraction to, and send these phrases to them. You are the owner of your karma. Your happiness and unhappiness depend upon your actions, not upon my wishes for you. I care for you as a suffering human being, but I cannot keep you from suffering. I wish you true happiness, but I cannot make your choices for you. And now think of someone who's been very supportive of you and send the phrases to them. You are the owner of your karma. Your happiness and unhappiness depend upon your actions, not upon my wishes for you. I care for you as a suffering human being, but I cannot keep you from suffering. I wish you true happiness, but I cannot make your choices for you. Now bring to mind a friend, and if the previous person is a friend, just think of another friend and send the phrases to them. You are the owner of your karma. Your happiness and unhappiness depend upon your actions, not upon my wishes for you. I care for you as a suffering human being, but I cannot keep you from suffering. I wish you true happiness, but I cannot make your choices for you. Now bring to mind somebody that you have a difficult relationship with and send the phrases to them. You are the owner of your karma. Your happiness and unhappiness depend upon your actions, not upon my wishes for you. I care for you too as a suffering human being, but I cannot keep you from suffering. I wish you too true happiness, that I cannot make your choices for you. And now we send the phrases to ourselves. I am the owner of my karma. My happiness and unhappiness depend on my actions, not my wishes or hopes. I care for myself, and I am determined to follow the path of peace. I wish myself happiness, and I am determined to make skillful choices. All beings are the owners of their karma. The happiness and unhappiness of all beings depends upon their actions, not upon my wishes for them. I care for all beings, the suffering beings, but I cannot keep them from suffering. I wish all beings true happiness, but I cannot make their choices for them. May the merit of our practice be shared with all sentient beings, named and unnamed. Please, calling them, happiness, courage. May all beings be one.